Now in the shop today, we're going to buff out some of the HP2 Sport parts. These are all carbon fiber and they've got many coats of clear on. Some have had even extra clear. The rear fender had some damage in it and we did every possible thing we could, including 3 or 4 extra coats of clear to try to clear that up. We'll see how it buffs out. Now this is part of the Vlad series. We're doing 3 restorations at the same time. We're trying to sequence parts from each job in. We're trying to work according to how Vlad wants to put these bikes back together. We have some parts on a BMW today to sand. We have some to buff. And we're expecting snow any minute now. So I guess we're not going to be doing any physical painting today. But on days it snows or rains or it's not appropriate to paint, we always have some other projects in the pipeline. Today is no exception. And it certainly looks like another day just like yesterday, a light wintry mix that's melting. It's not sticking. It's supposed to snow all day. And while I'm working on this snowy day, the chili dogs are in the cooker. How long they got to cook? I'm getting hungry already.
It's actually almost done.
Almost done. I got to go to work. So looking around, and we've got to make some decisions here because it's not going to be a painting day. We do have parts we can sand. We have one more valve cover to buff. We have a fender that's pretty much ready for buffing. And I think we're going to just put this Motor Guzzi thing off the table here because we need some room to move some parts around. And this is ready for the white paint, but of course we can't paint today. So every day, it's a lot of decisions to make. And we got these 2 parts drying up by the heating vent. They'll be ready for the 2000 grit sandpaper sometime today. So the whole thing is every day we have to prioritize. Now, anytime I'm working on more than one project at once, prioritizing, or what I call sequencing, is so important because a lot of times you can paint yourself into a corner where here comes a beautiful painting day and you don't have anything ready to paint. You're sanding, or the reverse of that. So sequencing, so important. So I'll mix up a little soapy water, some 2000 grit paper. I'm going to start on the smallest of the parts. Need to be 2000 grit sanded. Try to use this day productively. And this is the Rhino Wet, the red line, 2000 grit. And this combination of this paper, you could use 2500, you could use probably 1500, but I've compromised. This paper gets the most material off to flatten it with the least amount of scratches. And this is, you can buy this off the internet. It's Rhino Wet red line. That is some really good sandpaper. Now I'll put a lot of this in fast forward to keep it from making the video get too long. And this part, sanding with the 2000 grit, is just time consuming. Even in fast forward it's time consuming. But getting the whole part flat and not going through on any of the mountaintops, that's a little bit labor intensive. And when I do this, I always have a big cup of coffee somewhere nearby. And you can only do this for so long. I can only do it so many hours a day. I couldn't do this for 8 hours a day, of course. But the result, when you look at the result of a well-sanded part, and it's all flat, smooth, I was really careful to get out any little uneven part of this. And this part is going to be one you almost don't see, but I still want to have it perfect, of course. A brand new pad on the Palm sander and some 8065 or 8021, but I kind of prefer 8065. And any of the good polishes will be just as good, but this is the one that I seem, it's like, as I say, the devil I know. Now, whenever I'm buffing, and of course I do a lot of this, I like to use the little Palm sander. It's a Harbor Freight tool, under $20, and a new pad every time I do a day of work in a shop like this. And these days can be anywhere from 4 to 6 hours depending on time available, but I like to just do this as if time doesn't exist. And the trick you have to use, I guess, if you do this for a long time, you've got to kind of go back and forth, move, because otherwise your arm just gets paralyzed doing this. And at least mine does anyway. And I try to go back and forth and do the edges Be very careful on the mountaintops. There's no way you can do this in an hour. This just takes time, and it's kind of labor intensive, and it's the kind of thing a lot of people are intimidated by. They don't want to spend this time, and needless to say, it's like dental work. There's just no way to do it that I know real quickly. Now, I like to move the part around, use my knee as a buck to hold the part when I'm doing the edges, and it seems to work pretty well for me. I always have either a new fresh towel on the table or a towel that's just come out of the wash. I don't want to have a towel that's got a big stone or something in it, or some glue chips or something. And what I did one time, I saw there was a sale at Walmart on towels, and they were $2.99 each. I went and bought a whole pile of them, and they've lasted for years. So I used to have a foam cover for the bench, a piece of like mattress foam, 1-inch foam or whatever it was, and it got so deteriorated because you couldn't put it in the wash. The towels, you can just put them in a wash every day that you're not going to buff. Throw them in, and like doing a load of laundry. But a part like this, anytime I've tried to help somebody learn how to do this, they take a part off their motorcycle and they want to buff it out, or they want to do this, the one thing, if they are willing to put in the time and labor, it's going to go like glass. When you try to take shortcuts here, a lot of it right at the very end, I've got to go and get all the corners and edges by hand. The buffing wheel will not get down in those corners. But the result, what I'm always looking for is the result. And there's the result. Now, these are, when they're done, and this has probably got 5-6 coats of clear total, and any of the scratches that were in it, or any of the residue, the wear and tear from riding the bike, this is better than a brand new bike right now in every way, because it's got way more clear on it now. So should you chip it or scratch it, you can rebuff it. Sometimes with factory paint or factory finishes, you can't do that. Now the next part is this. This part had some severe damage from Vlad had a little bit of an incident with the bike, and it had a big chip out of it. And I tried every possible way I could to fix this chip, and I got it, I think, 99%. Let's see how it buffs out. Now, on a big part like this, and this is how I approach it, it's a constant thing of sanding and then looking for the little errors. And then when you get to this part, it's all sanded. See, that's where we have little spots in there that are just not perfect. And a lot of them are nibs, and nibs are just a problem with any paint. Even if you're a professional car painter, you want to get rid of the nibs. And to get this whole part, I call it detailing, but this is very, very time consuming. And I go back over and over and over. And whenever I've shown other people this process, they start to fall asleep, or they want to they want to go home. But anyway, this is time consuming stuff. To get this part that I'm going to be happy with it, because any minute that I spend here is going to be 5 or 10 minutes I don't have to use the buffer. This is a lot. To get the part as good as you can get it now, such an important thing. Get rid of every little defect you can, because this is removing a lot more material than the buffing compound, the 8065. The 8065 is very gentle about removing material, but the 2000 grit paper, you can get rid of a nub or a little defect or a scratch way quicker than if you just hold a buffing wheel on it for a half an hour. This is always good. I do the end of it with a sanding block, and the big word here is fussy. Fussy, fussy, fussy. And that repair spot actually looks pretty good. But of course there's limitations to what you can repair, but we gave this our best shot for sure. And once again, the 8065, the reason I like it, it seems to work a little bit quicker than some of the other polishes I've tried, and I've tried a lot of them, and I've found that a lot of polishes, they work, but they're just more work to get the shine to come up. And the 8065, to me, it just suits my shop conditions. It works perfectly with 2000 grit sandpaper, and it'll make the job a lot easier. Now, we've had these parts sitting up by a heating vent for I have 2 or 3 days or whatever, and there's just no substitute for it. This is the kind of thing you've got to take your time, you've got to let the paint cure out, and then you've got to go back and forth, back and forth. Wipe the part down, move your body position, try a different, look for a little defects in there, because every time you do it, you'll find another little spot, and by going back and forth over and over, and if in the very end of it, you'll be very happy that you did it. And over the many years of doing this, even the model airplanes and all of the motorcycles, and some of the other things, I've painted some engine covers for boats and some guitars and things. But they all have one thing in common. If you're patient and you do this as if time didn't exist, you're probably going to have a great result. And as soon as you start taking shortcuts, as soon as you start using techniques and things that you think are going to be the magic bullet, well, I haven't found any magic bullet in over 60 years, to be honest. I just keep finding the same old bullet over and over, and it seems to work great in the end, though. And all the while I'm doing this, and all the while I'm going back and forth and moving things and changing things and looking for defects and nibs and nubs and everything, I just keep thinking about that day that the whole bike is in one piece, and you go to your first bike meetup or see your friends or go out for a cup of coffee, and that bike is in the glistening sun, and it's a beautiful spring day, and that's what always matters to me. And then I dream about it, and dreams are free. Work is hard. This is dirty work. It's time consuming, and you wind up doing a lot of laundry and washing a lot of towels. But boy, in the end, do you have it. And in the end, when you have that bike, as I say, sitting out in a beautiful sun and a sunny day, you forget about all the work you did on it. You forget about all the pain. The pain seems to just fade away like it never happened at all. Well, this was certainly a long day, and we've been working our butts off on these parts to try to get them as nice as we can. And I'm sure Vlad appreciates the amount of effort, the amount of work that goes into this, and the final result. When this bike is put back together, I think it's going to be even nicer than the day it left the factory. Now, as I'm looking over the parts that are left on the 3 restorations that we're doing, and this is going to be an enormous job to get this sequenced up, and I think so far we're on the right path. I'm trying to work on what Vlad would like to do first, and again, we agreed the BMW is going to be the highest priority. There's still a lot of pieces to go, a lot of clear to shoot. We're on another unpaintable day, of which we had plenty. We have had so many days where you can't paint no matter what. But after this long winter of work, and when this bike is all put together, and Vlad is out at one of his shows or whatever, or if you're just with your friends, this is going to be a beautiful machine when it's all put back together. I know he has it all apart now. We talked about there was a bolt holding that seat on that wouldn't come out. It took 2 days for him to get the bolt out. He got it out. And a lot of this work that we're doing is just patience, patience, and more patience. And when it's done, I repeat this because a lot of people don't have the vision of when they're working on a bike, even if you're restoring it and just taking it apart and cleaning it and doing mechanical work, they can't picture what that day is going to be like when it's all put back together. And no matter what, that day is coming, whether you restore a bike or not. And then all your friends are there, and you can just look at it glistening in the sun. And we certainly are doing our part to bring this guy, as I say always, back to better than the day it left the factory. And thanks so much for watching.